Now, before we begin this video, let's all just sit down for a second and take a deep breath collectively to try and center ourselves, because what I'm about to talk about is pure freaking hype. By now, it's probably breaking the entire internet in half, which is the fact that Sega lied to us, but not in a bad way, actually in a very, very good way. So for the last couple months, they've been talking about basically their little micro console, the Sega Genesis and Mega Drive Mini. It was going to have 40 built-in games, which is obviously double the amount of the 20 that is in the PlayStation Mini. It's got 10 more than the NES Mini, which had 30 very stellar games, and every single thing we've seen revealed so far is pure awesomeness. There are no filler games that we've seen so far in the Sega Genesis micro console, and now we have the last ones revealed. But it's not 40 games, it's 42. What's up, gamers? Dreamcast Guy here, and to start with, let's dig through everything that's been revealed up until today. All the stuff that was shown, basically because there were 30 games that already blew my mind before these additional, absolutely insane ones got shown off this morning. So over the course of the last couple months, Sega's been teasing us by revealing the fact that the Sega Genesis Mini is going to have Ecco the Dolphin, Space Harrier 2, Castlevania Bloodlines, which I absolutely love, both as a Castlevania fan and as somebody who just likes random cool Sega Genesis gems, Shining Force, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, which is of course a very cool puzzle game that has a special place in my heart because it's basically just Puyo Pop, Toe Jam and Earl, Comix Zone, Sonic the Hedgehog, Altered Beast, Gunstar Heroes, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Earthworm Jim, Castle of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse, and World of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, Thunder Force 3, Super Phantasy Zone, Shinobi 3, Return of the Ninja Master, Streets of Rage 2, which I love so much, I've been using it as the background footage here, which I recorded on Switch just because I love that game so much, both co-op and solo, Contra Hardcore, Landstalker, the completely underrated hack-and-slash RPG, Mega Man The Wily Wars, which is incredibly rare and incredibly good, Street Fighter 2 Special Championship Edition, Sonic Spinball, Phantasy Star 4, which, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that's coming back, Beyond Oasis, Ghouls and Ghosts, Alex Kidd in Enchanted Castle, Golden Axe, Vectorman, and Wonder Boy in Monster World. Now, already that is a stellar lineup. If all they had was those 30 games, I would absolutely be buying it day one because there's possibly thousands of hours of stuff to play, trying to beat those games over and over again and setting high scores in stuff like Altered Beast, along with trying to just grind through these crazy, giant, expansive RPGs. But what they revealed today just blows all the rest out of the water, because while they kept saying that there were going to be 40 games, there are in fact 42. So let's talk about the 12 new ones that were just revealed today. So first up, we have Eternal Champions, a sweet little game that's basically just very, very fun. Next up, we have Columns. Now, admittedly, Columns is a lesser known and lesser talked about block breaker, but still a very fun one. Dynamite Headdy, Strider, which everybody knows about Strider and Dynamite Headdy, Light Crusader, which I will admit that I've never played myself. This is one of those games that I've heard a little bit about, it being like an isometric game, but I've never tested it just because it's just such an unknown little gem, and that's kind of the stuff that I like the most. I've always said that when it comes to micro consoles, you want a combination of the really famous stuff that made the console big in the first place, and also really high caliber stuff that most people perhaps haven't heard of. Next up is Virtua Fighter 2, which is just a very solid brawler that obviously has some pretty hilarious graphics now, just because they are kind of dated. But the next one here is Elissa Dragon, or Elisia Dragon. And what's interesting about this one is it's definitely super, super rare. It is like a platformer shooter, but it's just one of those things that has a really good, style to it. It's got a really charming art, but honestly, on top of that, I just think that it's one of those games that was one of of the earliest games that just had a plot that it sort of put in the background. It had some universe building and some real motivations, but when you're turning it on, it's just for the very solid gameplay. And I've actually heard a lot of people very specifically requesting this game just because it is rare. People have been begging Sega to put that on this system, that way it can finally get access to a wider audience. Now next up is Road Rash 2, which I love because it's freaking Road Rash. It's racing and beating people with chains and having a blast, and also I think it still had one of the funniest box arts, so I do hope that there's like a picture of the box art in the game itself. Kid Chameleon, and then Monster World 4. Now this is a sweet action game that's pretty cool, but what's additionally special about it is that this never got an official release here in the US back on the Sega Genesis. I do believe that it was in certain collections later on, so there is like an official translation, but this is really the very first time that we're going to be able to just play it in a full capacity, so I'm going to be playing it just for that. Now the last two games are definitely the most special. There is Darius, which is a really cool plane shooting game, and Tetris. I bet you didn't even know that Tetris came to the Sega Genesis, and that's because only 10 copies ever were actually created. Yes, that's right. This is one of the rarest games ever released, ever in the entire history of time. There are this many copies, and they managed to get the original code and put it on here for us. It is apparently just a little bit different, and I think it's just really cool looking, but it's also just a great piece of history that is on this machine. I'm going to be playing the heck out of this, but that especially is just one of those really interesting things that I think a lot of people are going to sit back, look at, and go, huh, I had no idea that even existed. So now that we have the full list of all 42 freaking games that are going to be on this little machine, I just want to talk for a second about what I actually think it'll be like, because there are two things that I think are really important to think about beyond just the games themselves, which is the emulation and the hardware. Now, first and foremost, let's talk about the emulation. Now, emulation, when a lot of people think about it, they usually picture in their head just the things you install on your computer, or if you have a hacked Dreamcast that can play Super Nintendo games, people usually picture things like that, whereas emulation is definitely a more general programming term that basically just means simulating a console experience. And I think that it's very interesting to see the fact that this stuff, from everything we're seeing now, seems 100% one-to-one accurate. This is because, to a great degree, it's being handled by M2. Now, if you haven't heard of them, M2 has been working behind the scenes on a lot of different projects, and most notably, one of their giant recent ones was the Castlevania collection. They're people who have an enormous amount of experience of trying to perfectly simulate really, really ancient tech in a modern sense. And that to me is ultra important. If you're going to be trying to bring all these super rare games back to the forefront and trying to get things that practically don't even exist like Tetris, you need to make sure that they are perfect, and M2 I trust completely. This is a team that understands speed and making sure music sounds right and getting each little pixel perfect amount on your screen in 1080p 60 frames a second flawlessly. So I trust them eternally. But let's talk about the hardware. So we've seen the console itself, we've seen that it comes with 3 button controllers, and there has been some debate about the 6 button controllers that seems like will work, or you will have to buy them. Additionally, they've also said that they're partnering with a third-party team. I believe it's 8-Bit Tendo. I'll put them right here. These people are Retrobit. They're going to be making controllers for it as well. They are a very trusted brand who does some really, really good stuff, and I am good to see this partnership. It's one of those things where it definitely instills a lot of faith in me to see the fact that clearly Sega wants to do this just so 100% right. I do think that more than anything, Sega's realized that they just needed to try and do this perfectly because it is a very competitive market. The NES Mini and the SNES Mini are fantastic. They are super superb little gadgets, which is why I keep them permanently in my background. And I think that they realized that in order to get people as excited and literally lining up outside stores like people were for these, you need to make a truly spectacular product. And from the onset, it seems like we have definitely got that. But what do you think of the 42 games that have now been revealed, and just in general, the look and design of this? Tell me what you think in the comments down below, and really, just everything Sega. I always want to have some hype and share everything with you guys. This has been a great freaking announcement. Thanks so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all, and keep dreaming. Where did I set that? This really is my copy of Ghouls and Ghosts. I keep finding really rare stuff just by accident. I think I paid $2 for this, and it's complete in box. Instruction manual, everything. Pristine condition, labels not even popping off. That's my thing when it comes to game collecting, is I do like to try and get things in 100% perfect condition, which is why I'm just so serious when it comes to proper emulation. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.